Ladies and gentlemen, Jeffery Patterson and the Theater of the Mind.
The lieutenant looked like he was asleep. Then again, he always looked like that. For me, my nerves were so jagged I thought I could hear anything within a half-mile radius. I was laying here in this ditch. Been here for the last few hours. It's about half full of water. I started to wonder if I was actually going to see another day. I thought of 3 instances when I'd been in a lot of trouble. My dad's face appeared. He had said the same thing each time. And he said, "Son, don't worry about it. You're a good person, and you're going to get through this all right. You're going to amount to something one day." And it occurred to me I'd never thanked him. I'd never thanked him for saying that. And I did get through them all okay. Just then, a flash went by and got my attention, brought me back into present time real quick. My good buddy Digger flanked off to my right. He had that half smile on his face like he always had. We saw 3 of the Vietnamese trying to sneak into a hooch just up ahead. Looked over to the captain. He saw them too. He gave me and Digger the high sign. We slithered over that ditch lid and started snaking through the seagrass. We got about 5 yards out from the hooch. We could hear them talking. Looked over at Digger. Yeah, he still had that half smile. We nodded, smiled, winked. I shuffled around my sawed-off 12-gauge shotgun for close-end shot fighting, and we nodded at each other. We both jumped up. I dove through the window. He kicked down the door. I stamped the 2 of them full of holes. Digger got the other 3, but there were 6 in there. One of them loaded, leveled, shot Digger right square in the chest. He was pulled back like he was on the end of a rope. There's a hole in his chest the size of a baseball. I pumped and fired. What was a Vietnamese exploded. Saw Digger laying there on the floor, looking up at the ceiling. Thought it was probably the last thing he was ever going to see. His lips was moving. I went over and put my ear down over his lips, and he said, "Indiana." His eyes rolled back in his head. He was gone. I heard the captain whistle outside, and guns and bombs and hand grenades going off, and I realized we'd been suckered. Into an ambush. I threw my 12-gauge shotgun down and grabbed my V-22, slapped it on full automatic, and I said, all right, let's rock and roll." About 8 months later, I came back to the world. I landed in Seattle. I didn't stop to say goodbye to the Army or hello to the USA. I bought an old pickup truck, drove about 1,000 miles down to Southern California where I grew up, graduated school, and married my high school sweetheart. We kissed and We hugged each other so hard I thought our bones would break. And I picked up my little boy. We got in the pickup truck. We was headed out to the desert. I was determined to tell my dad how much his words had meant to me, how they'd saved my life. We drove through this little town of, maybe 1,000 souls, and turned up this long dirt road that went up to his little shack. The sun was just coming up. That old truck had a big old dust rooster tail behind it. I just couldn't wait to see him. I could see his old shack up there just under the boot. Sun just starting to hit it. Pulled up, stopped. Doors hanging on one hinge. All the windows just broke out. Sand had drifted in and a lizard ran out. My son went up to my dad's favorite chair and found a family of mice living in it. One of the neighbors stopped by and said that just a couple of months ago he'd quit being the old happy, grumpy old self, and he just gave up. He died. My son brought me a piece of paper he had found down in my dad's chair. I unwrapped it and it had mimeographed words on it. He said, "We hate to inform you," and there was a mouse hole, "in the service of his country." Then it occurred to me why my dad had died. His dream for me had died when he thought I did. Their stupid mistake hadn't managed to kill me while I was over there, but they had my dad. My little boy came up and said, "Dad, what does it mean?" I remember asking my dad those words. I remember the time that me and my dad spent about 3 days building a kite. Never did fly. I remember the day that he bandaged my knee and he made me laugh while he was doing it. I remember the time we sat side by side there on that couch and looked at a picture book of castles. Oh, he loved them so. He'd tell me little pieces about all of them. My little boy said, Dad, what does it mean?" I picked up my little boy. I said, "Son, it means you're going to be all right. Don't worry about it, because you're a good person, and you're going to amount to something one day."